So you shared an article about OpenAI's latest creation, Canvas, and I have to admit, I'm intrigued. It sounds like a pretty radical departure from how we usually interact with AI.
It's a significant development for sure. Canvas signifies a move beyond simple chat interactions with AI towards a more integrated and iterative creative process.
OpenAI announced this just yesterday, on October 3rd, and they're aiming to make Canvas accessible to everyone eventually. But right now, it's rolling out first for ChatGPT Plus, and team users with enterprise and education users getting access next week.
It's a strategic rollout that makes sense, allowing OpenAI to gather feedback and refine the feature with those users before releasing it to a wider audience.
Makes sense. Okay, so for those of us who haven't had our morning coffee yet, what is Canvas? The article uses the phrase superpowered collaborator, but what does that actually look like in practice?
Imagine starting a blog post, getting stuck on the introduction, and then asking Canvas to generate a few options based on your existing notes. That's the kind of collaborative potential we're talking about. Canvas isn't just about generating text. It's about having a back and forth refining ideas and getting targeted feedback within a single integrated space.
And speaking of targeted feedback, the article highlights how Canvas lets you give ChatGPT very specific instructions right. You can literally highlight sections of text and ask ChatGPT to focus on them. Almost like having a personal editor looking over your shoulder, but way less intimidating.
Precisely. This granular control over the AI's focus is essential for effective collaboration. It allows for more targeted feedback and suggestions.
And it's not just about suggesting words or tweaking sentences. Canvas also has these cool built-in shortcuts. Think about how often you agonize over the length of an email or report. Canvas could help you tailor your writing to the ideal length with just a few clicks. You can even ask it to adjust the reading level to make your writing more accessible.
Exactly. It's all about removing those friction points in the creative process.
And for all you coders out there, Canvas has some seriously awesome features tailored specifically for you. Imagine this. You're building a website, and your code is throwing an error you can't pinpoint. With Canvas, you could highlight the problematic section and ask it to identify the issue. It might not have the solution every time, but it could save you hours of troubleshooting.
While this fix bugs feature sounds incredibly promising, it's crucial to remember that Canvas is still in its early stages. Relying solely on it for debugging, especially in critical applications, might not be advisable at this point. However, it has the potential to significantly speed up the coding process and help developers catch errors early on.
Good point. And speaking of early stages, the article got into how OpenAI trained Canvas to be this collaborative partner.
Yeah.
They had to teach it when to pop up, when to make small tweaks, and when to suggest a total rewrite. It sounds like a massive undertaking.
They used a combination of techniques, including something called synthetic data generation, which essentially means they created a massive data set to train the model on how to behave within this new Canvas environment. They also incorporated a lot of human feedback to ensure the AI's suggestions are actually helpful and relevant. It highlights the complexity of developing these advanced language models.
It's mind-blowing how much work goes on behind the scenes.
Oh.
But for us, the users, the key takeaway is that this is just the beginning.
Indeed, the possibilities are quite vast.
So how does Canvas actually work in practice? What can you tell us about the user experience?
Well, one of the things OpenAI emphasizes is that Canvas isn't meant to be a separate tool you have to switch back and forth from. It's integrated directly into ChatGPT. In fact, it can often anticipate when you might need it and proactively offer to open Canvas for you.
Wait, really? So it's like it's reading your mind?
Not quite mind reading. OpenAI explains that they train the model to recognize certain cues that suggest a user would benefit from a more visual collaborative workspace.
That's wild. So it's not just about what you're working on, but how you're working on it.
Yeah.
So it's like it can sense when you're hitting a wall and needs a little extra help to get those creative juices flowing.
Exactly. For instance, if you're going back and forth with ChatGPT in a chat, making a lot of revisions to a piece of text, or if you're working on a particularly complex coding problem, these are the kinds of scenarios where Canvas is likely to be most helpful.
So it's almost like having a helpful coworker who can sense when you're wrestling with something and offers to lend a hand.
A very astute coworker. And it's not just about anticipating your needs. You also have the autonomy to tell ChatGPT to open a canvas if you think it would be useful. They even mention including use Canvas in your prompt as a way to specifically trigger it.
Ah, so you can either let it work its magic or take the reins yourself. Now, once you're actually inside Canvas, what's the experience like? The article mentions some pretty cool features like syntax highlighting for code and those handy shortcuts we talked about earlier.
From the descriptions and images provided, it seems like OpenAI has designed Canvas for a seamless and intuitive experience. For writing, you have a dedicated space where you can draft and edit your text with ChatGPT suggestions appearing directly in line. And for coding, you have a similar setup but tailored to the nuances of code, with features like syntax highlighting and automatic indentation to help streamline your workflow.
And those shortcuts, how do those fit in?
Think of the shortcuts like a toolbar of quick actions at your fingertips. Let's say you're working on a piece of writing and you realize it's a bit too verbose. Instead of painstakingly going through and cutting it down yourself, you can simply use the adjust the length shortcut and tell ChatGPT to make it more concise, and it will intelligently trim it down for you.
Talk about a time saver. And what about the fix bugs feature for coders? That sounds almost too good to be true.
It certainly has the potential to be a game changer, especially for those hard-to-find bugs. It seems that you can either highlight a specific section of code where you suspect the bug might be, or if you're really stumped, you can just let ChatGPT have a look at the entire code block.
So it's not just blindly replacing lines of code, it's actually trying to understand the context and intent.
Yeah, that seems to be the idea. OpenAI stresses that they've worked hard to ensure ChatGPT doesn't just make arbitrary changes. It's supposed to be able to analyze the code, identify potential errors, and suggest fixes that align with the overall structure and logic of your program.
It's like having a senior developer looking over your shoulder, but without the judgmental stares.
Precisely. But with all these impressive features, it's only natural to wonder how OpenAI knows if Canvas is actually working. How are they measuring its success?
It's one thing to release a shiny new tool, but it's another thing entirely to make sure it's actually useful.
Absolutely. OpenAI seems to be taking a data-driven approach to evaluating Canvas's performance. They're tracking things like how often Canvas is triggered correctly, meaning it pops up when it's actually useful and not when it's just going to be a distraction.
Because the last thing anyone needs is an overly eager AI assistant constantly interrupting their flow.
Exactly. They're also looking at the quality of the suggestions being made and how well the AI is able to adapt to different writing styles and coding languages. They're even gathering feedback from users during this beta period to guide future improvements and new features.
So they're encouraging users to dive and experiment and help shape the future of this technology. That's a pretty cool approach.
It is. OpenAI seems to be embracing a very iterative and user-centered approach to development, which bodes well for Canvas's future.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. We've talked about what Canvas is, how it works, and even how OpenAI is measuring its success.
Yeah.
But before we wrap up, we need to address the elephant in the room. The speed bumps on this road to AI collaboration.
Of course. While the potential benefits of Canvas are significant, it's crucial to consider the potential challenges as well.
Because with a tool as powerful as Canvas, it's not all smooth sailing and increased productivity, right? There are bound to be bumps along the way.
Right. One potential hiccup is figuring out how Canvas fits into existing workflows. Companies and individuals have their own established processes for writing, coding, and collaborating. Integrating a new tool, especially one as sophisticated as Canvas, will require some adaptation and adjustment. It's not just about learning how to use Canvas, it's about figuring out how it best complements existing tools and processes.
It's like trying to fit a brand new high-tech coffee machine into a kitchen designed for a classic percolator. It might take some rearranging to find the perfect spot and workflow.
Exactly. And then there's the learning curve. While OpenAI has emphasized user-friendliness, Canvas offers a lot of advanced features. Users, especially those new to AI tools, might need time and guidance to fully grasp its capabilities and integrate them effectively into their workflow. It's important to manage expectations and understand that there might be a period of adjustment as people become familiar with this new way of working.
So patience and a willingness to experiment are key.
Absolutely. Now, you mentioned potential speed bumps. What comes to mind?
Well, I'm thinking about over-reliance on AI. It's easy to get caught up in the excitement of a tool like Canvas that promises to make writing and coding faster and easier. But we can't forget that AI is still a tool. It can augment our abilities, but shouldn't replace them entirely.
That's a crucial point. We need to be mindful of not becoming overly dependent on AI to the point where we lose sight of our own critical thinking and problem-solving skills. Maintaining a balance between leveraging AI's capabilities and nurturing our own skills will be crucial.
It's like using GPS navigation. It's a fantastic tool for getting us where we need to go. But if we never bother to learn the route ourselves, what happens if the GPS fails?
Exactly. It's about finding that synergy between human ingenuity and AI assistance. Now, for our listeners who are eager to dive into Canvas and start experimenting, what should they keep in mind?
Go in with an explorer's mindset. Don't be afraid to experiment, make mistakes, and discover what Canvas can do. Treat it as a collaborative partner, not a magic wand. Where can our listeners learn more about Canvas and maybe even give it a try?
OpenAI has a dedicated page for Canvas on their website with more information on its features, how it works, and how to get started. We'll include a link to that in the show notes.
Perfect. And before we wrap up this deep dive into OpenAI's ChatGPT Canvas, any closing thoughts?
Canvas has the potential to reshape how we approach creative and technical tasks. Embracing this new era with a blend of excitement and thoughtful consideration will be key to harnessing its full potential.
Well said. A big thank you to our expert for joining us on this deep dive into the world of OpenAI's ChatGPT Canvas. We hope you found this insightful and thought-provoking, and maybe even sparked some ideas about how you might use Canvas in your own work.
It's been my pleasure.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.